Thank you, Michael. Tammy, always lovely to see you. I'm happy to be here tonight to celebrate Muted, and I'm happy to have our audience out there paying attention and listening. So, for everyone out there, I'm going to kick this off with something unambiguous. Support Tammy and Books Are Magic by buying Muted through the link that's in the chat. That link's going to pop up several times throughout the conversation. I'll remind you, please buy Muted. You need this book. I had the opportunity to read it ahead of time. It is fantastic. We're going to get into it, but we're also going to have some interactive elements, as Michael mentioned. Two ways that we're going to get you to participate in tonight's talk. The first is the verses portion that's been advertised. Me and Tammy, we're going to tackle a few questions where we each give an answer, and you get to decide in the chat who you agree with. So that's going to be us battling with our music knowledge because we are music lovers. The other way you get to interact is through trivia. We're going to have a couple of questions throughout the night about R&B groups, and we get you to give your best answer in the chat. Got it? Two ways. So we're going to talk. Sometimes we're going to battle, and sometimes we're going to ask you some questions before we get to your Q&A. Hope everyone has it. Tammy, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to kick it off with a battle question first. So this is the one where y'all got to tell us who you agree with. You should probably agree with me, but we're going to see what Tammy got to say. The first question, Tammy.
Yes.
What's the best R&B remix?
The best R&B remix ever is Honey by Mariah Carey, The Lox and Mace. I don't know nothing about that. That is pure R&B perfection with some hip hop mixed in.
It is. It is. I got something for you. Though.
Okay.
The Best of Me remix by Maya and Jay-Z.
Never heard of it.
What?
I'm kidding.
Are you serious? Oh, yeah. So look, y'all, if y'all know these songs, the Honey remix by Mariah Carey and the Lox, Best of Me remix by Maya and Jay-Z. Y'all put in the chat who you think got the better pick. And we're going to move on to a question about Muted now, Tammy.
Oh, wait. I won. I'm looking at the chat. I'm with
everybody,
Tammy, honey.
Everybody ain't chiming in yet. Everybody ain't chiming in yet. Moving on. Tammy, Muted.
Got it.
The book blew me away. It's a fantastic piece of work. So I'm going to ask you like the high level question and then get into it. Like what made you have to write this book?
If I'm being honest, I didn't want to write it.
No, tell us about that. Yeah.
At first, so here's the thing. I used to be in a singing group and it was a good time. You know, we never made it to the big time, but we sure had fun trying. We had these little tiny brushes with fame. And thank God this was before Instagram, YouTube, American Idol, like all that stuff. Like this was before the internet was like popping. So like it was a bit of a roller coaster. But that's like a part of me that I just kind of put to rest. You know, it didn't work out. I moved on with my life. I became a teacher. I became an author. It's something that I thought that would never come up again. So it's funny how this story was born from rejection because I had written a manuscript, a different book, and submitted that book to a publisher, and I had gotten a pass, which, okay, you and I both know that's par for the course in this industry. But that editor wrote my agent and was like, hey, you know, yeah, it's a pass on this, but I saw on her website that she used to be in an R&B all-girl singing group. If she ever writes a novel about that, like, I want to see it. And my agent, of course, was like pushing me. She's like, you got to do it. Like, this is different. You got to do it. And I didn't want to. I was like, I don't have a story. So some more time passed and my agent would every now and then push me, like ask me, you really should do this. And then Me Too. The Me Too like movement really took on a national platform. And at first when Me Too was really gaining traction, you know, these were like stories about white women and how they were abused by men in power. And what I felt needed a more like razor sharp focus was like, okay, what about women of color? What about Black women? And then we started seeing some documentaries and headlines creep up. And those stories that we had heard way back from the 90s were really like being thrust to the spotlight now. And I was like, ooh, okay, yeah, I could write about that because I've seen some stuff and I heard some stuff and I met a few characters myself. That's when the story came to play. Like I was in that world, I was in a singing group. What would have happened to my group had we met the likes of a Sean Mercury Ellis? And that's how Muted came to play. And then I knew I could write it.
So I definitely see the parallels with some of the more high profile stories we've seen come out of the Me Too movement that are adjacent to the music industry.
Yeah.
And I want to get back to that. It's something you said. You mentioned that you sort of got here after a rejection, and I'm
Yes.
curious when you think about rejection. Like I know all about that in this industry, but you were part of the music industry, and I wonder if there are like parallels you draw between music industry and publishing when it comes to the acceptance, the rejection, like having to go through gatekeepers. Like, what about your music industry experience? Were you able to pour into this book? And is it somewhat like what we deal with in publishing?
Oh, it's a lot like what we deal in publishing. I mean, in the music industry, there's a lot of rejection. You work so hard on a song, just like you work so hard on a manuscript, but like, and you do all that you can to create this masterpiece, and nobody wants it, or it feels like no one wants it. Um, I will say though that music changes, like the trends in music changes a bit more than like in publishing. So like some of the music that my group was writing back in the 90s and early 2000s, that would never fly today. But stories from then, right, could still work, could, still have that readability. But yeah, like we got rejected. We did a whole like mini album. We had this whole demo, and our producer, he was a big producer at the time. He was working with Britney Spears and Brandy, and he took it out to California, and nope, nobody wanted it. And we just kept hitting a brick wall. And the music industry will do that. It will like, oh man, it will break you and it will suck you in and break you and spit you out. And you got to think about, do I keep trying or do I move on? And at some point for us, we just decided it was better to move on. We had bills. We were becoming adults. We started like as young as 13. But after a while, when you graduate college, it's like, what am I going to do? So I gave up on it. And then I became a teacher, and then I became an author. And I went through the whole thing all over again, being rejected in publishing. It's all parallel.
Well, I'll say this: the music industry's loss is publishing's gain. I'm
Thank
happy to
you.
have you as a colleague, and like I said, the book is fantastic. I have a craft question for you,
Sure.
and it's about something I heard you say in another talk. So this book, if I'm getting this right, originally started as just straight prose,
Yep.
but at some point you felt that wasn't working. I wonder if you could talk about that. Like, what freed you up when you got to the point of thinking of this as a novel you're going to write in verse with your own original songs?
So yeah, more reluctance.
Mm-hmm.
I first started this book about 7 years ago. The shell of the story was the same. I knew I wanted to write about a girl who had run away from home. She disobeyed her parents in the name of fame, trying to become a star. And I knew that she was retelling the story of how she got in all this trouble and apologizing within like a plane ride home. So all of that stayed. I knew that that was the shell of the story. But when I wrote it in prose, I couldn't get past 60 pages. And the other problem was my focus, or the character's focus, was not razor sharp. Like the original character, and it was a different name, she just wanted to be famous, period. Like acting, singing, dancing, anything that she could do to make it in Hollywood. It wasn't that she wanted to be a singer in a singing group. Like I just had her be like an all-around wannabe superstar. I think that's why it didn't work. It just wasn't like it wasn't a single focus. And then when I got that rejection in publishing, it's like, oh, why don't you write about a singing group? Like, that would be so cool. When all those pieces came together, I was like, oh yeah, I was in a singing group and we used to write our own songs. Oh, I think I got to write this in verse. And that terrified me because I've never written anything in verse. I read lots of verse, but I'd never written it. But I knew that this girl was a songwriter and I knew that she was going to have some songs in there. And then I said, this has to be in verse. So I went for it. I took a risk.
The risk was worth it.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break to get our audience in on this. So y'all remember, there's two interactive elements. There's the battle questions between me and Tammy that you chime in on. And then there's the trivia. And right now, I have a trivia question for you.
But look, I won, just so you know. I just checked the chat again.
I gotta count. I gotta tally everything up later. We'll see.
Okay, if you say so, buddy.
Here's how the trivia works.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you the question, everybody in the audience, and I'm gonna list 4 answers, and you just put in the chat which answer you think is correct. These are all based on female R&B singers, specifically from the 90s. So, first question: who sang the song "How Can I Ease the Pain"? Your choices are Lisa Stansfield, Lisa Lopez, or Lisa Fisher. Who sang "How Can I Ease the Pain"?
I loved that song.
Yeah, I did too. That's still a banger. Still a banger. I see some answers coming in.
You gonna sing it for us?
See, I saw you tell people. I saw you tell people that I was going to. Yeah, that I was going to sing tonight, and that's a little thing that I like to call incorrect. That is. It's not.
You know what? I won't even try that song. That's a very hard song. So
yeah, her voice, the correct answer is voice, crazy. And I see the answers coming in. So I'm gonna tell you, the correct answer is Lisa Fisher.
Yes.
And Lisa Fisher ended up winning a Grammy for that song, I think. And there's a documentary, I cannot remember the name, but it's about background singers. And she went on to sing background for a famous rocker whose name is like 12 feet from stardom. Yeah, that documentary is amazing. You can see Lisa Fisher in that banging song. And we'll keep it going with questions about, yeah. So back to Muted. So you talked about the single focus is what kind of clarified things for you with Muted. And people were really interested in your experience in the music industry. So I'm curious, like, is Denver a character that's very much like you or like you were at that age? Or are any of the characters in the book similar to young singer Tammy?
Yeah, so my parents are in the room. Like, I already saw my dad answer. But I'm going to say yes. Denver. So Denver does some, like, she does some things in this book that really, man, if my son does this to me, I'm just going to like flip. Yes, she snuck off a few times. Like she's 17. She has a car. She has a license. And I remember being 17. I remember sneaking off. I'm sorry, Daddy. So in that respect, yes, I was a little rebellious like Denver. But I turned out okay. But I'm also like some of the other characters too. There's a 3-girl group. So there's Denver, there's Dalise, and there's Shaq. Shaq grew up in the church. So like, I feel like her religion is what kept her like grounded morally from like when Merc comes along and he starts sending all these like red flags, she catches it right away, but the other 2 girls don't. So, but that's grounded in her religion. So I think a part of me is in there because I grew up in the church. I grew up Pentecostal. And then Dalise is almost like this, she's a little rebellious. She's very funny, you know, she's a good friend. So yeah, I'm a little bit of me is in all of those characters.
All right, so I'm gonna come back to this. I'm gonna ask you a question, but I want you to think about it a little bit because I'm gonna put you on the spot. I know a question you're not gonna answer. I'm not gonna ask the question I know you're not gonna answer.
Don't do it, bro.
I'm not, but I'm gonna ask you, is, can you bless us with any cool music industry stories from your time in the industry? Like anything fun, funny. And you don't have to think about it right now, because I'm going to go back to the audience with
Okay.
another trivia question. So think about
Wait,
that while I talk.
I got one for you though. I'm ready.
Okay.
But if
Oh
you
no, you know what?
I'm ready.
No, do your story first, and then we'll hit
Okay.
it with the trivia.
So real quick, when I was in the singing group, at this time there were 4 of us in the group, and you'll see in the book how the dynamics of the singing group changed. Well, that's because the dynamics of my own singing group changed over the years that we were together. We started off as 4 and we ended up as 3. When we were four of us, we got to audition for Boys to Men. Boys to Men had started their own like production record company. They were trying to do the thing that like New Edition was doing. You know how New Edition branched off and they started their own record companies. So they had done that, and they had gotten word that, oh, there's this girl group from Jersey. So we went, our dads brought us, and we auditioned for their showcase, and we got in. We met them, we took pictures. It was so great. Now, we were advised, like, we got to have our stuff tight for the showcase. We got matching outfits. We got our hair done. Like, we were looking fine. We had the vocals together, and then we had dances together. Well, let me tell you, at the last minute, this was so stupid. I don't know why we did this, but we took away the choreography. We thought we looked stupid doing the choreography. So we get to the showcase and we go up. It's our turn to perform for Boys to Men's showcase. And because we didn't have no choreography, we were just bouncing along on the stage looking stupid. Meanwhile, these other groups, they had their stuff together. I don't know why we did that. But you want to know the group that won? Who was in the group that won?
Who?
Pink. Wow. Dang it. Pink. She sang her butt off. And she was in a 3-girl group at the time. And they had it together. Like, what do? We just, right before we went on stage, oh, we're not going to dance. That's stupid. We're not the Jackson 5. So yeah, we lost our shot. That's all right.
Well, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but now I want to hear many more of your music stories. We'll have to do that another time. I'm going to shoot it back to the audience for another trip. Well, before we do trivia, I want to remind y'all, please, more than anything, if you want to support Tammy and Muted tonight, please buy a book from Books or Magic. That link's going to pop up in the chat periodically. It's at the top. It'll come up again eventually. Please remember, we want to celebrate, but we also want to support, and the best support is to buy a book, and particularly tonight from Books Are Magic. Also, don't forget, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of this. So if you have questions, please think of good stuff to ask us. Don't leave us hanging. The Q&A button is somewhere on your screen. If you're on a tablet, I think it's at the top. If you're on a computer, it's at the bottom. Please give us some stuff that you want to know about Muted, about Tammy's writing or her career. And back to trivia. Again, I'm going to give you a question. I'm going to give you 4 choices, and you throw it in the chat, whichever one you think is correct. This question goes, Terry, Don, Cindy, and Maxine are the original members of which female 90s R&B singing group? Your choices are SWV, In Vogue, Total, or Xscape.
I love all 4 of those groups.
I do too.
But there's only one that I was inspired by, like to be in a singing group.
Which one?
The one that people are answering.
So no one's getting this wrong. I mean, I'm glad. No one. I love.
Great answers.
I love In Vogue.
Yeah.
In fact, I was talking to some friends the other night. We watched the Salt and Pepper biopic on Lifetime, and we were just hoping that eventually they get around to doing an In Vogue biopic.
Oh yeah, that would be good. They're down to 3. See, the dynamics change, and it's not even the original 3. It's just 2.
Did you see like when they had 2 versions of the group going at the same time?
That was crazy.
That was super weird. Weird. But back to you. It's your night, and I'm going to ask you a question. I get the question a lot, like, how much input do authors have in their covers? And, being in this industry, sometimes it can vary. But I got to ask you the question about this gorgeous, gorgeous cover. Like, I mean, this is something that's super eye catching. I'm wondering, did you have anything to do with this, or were you just blessed with this beauty from above?
Well, both. And, like huge shout out to Scholastic for just like really having me involved like every step of the way, from the cover to what's inside to the audio book to the songs. Like, they were down with all my crazy ideas, and I really appreciated them. The care that they took with this girl. What I really love about this cover is that she looks so badass. She's like busting through the letters that say muted. And in my mind, that symbolizes that, like, she's saying, I'm done being quiet. And if you look deep into her eyes, you will notice that she has two different eye colors. That's a condition called heterochromia. And it plays plays a little bit of a role in the book, because I wanted to symbolize that blue eye that she has, that symbolizes the sky, which is literally where she's telling the story from. She's on a plane ride going home, retelling the story of how she got in trouble, right? But that blue eye also represents the limitlessness of her dreams. The brown eye represents the earth, soil, home. That's where she's headed. And that's where, like, she's going to be her happiest, even though she ran away and she got in all this trouble. Like, she is meant to be home with the people that she loves. So and you'll see, readers, when you read the whole way through, you'll truly understand the meaning of those two different color eyes.
Very nice, very nice. So I gotta say, I'm a Scholastic author too, and they do some wonderful work with covers. They always have take great input from authors. They've done a really great job with this one, Tammy. Battle question for you. So, audience, remember how this works. I'm gonna ask the question. Me and Tammy gonna give different answers. Y'all decide who's right.
I'm gonna
It should be
win.
me.
I won the first question. Let's go.
Here's the question. Best movie soundtrack. What is it, Tammy?
Come on, bro. It's Waiting to Exhale. Everybody knows that. That's the right answer. I got a backup one, though. Dang it, I should have said my backup one. But no, I'm going to stick with Waiting to Exhale, because I know all the songs off of that.
I mean, I can't deny movie soundtrack, but I gotta go my go-to, the Boomerang soundtrack. Eddie Murphy's Boomerang, 1992, I think. And we got some other people chiming in the battle. We got Mr. Jason Reynolds. We got Mr. Jason Reynolds in the house calling out the Love Jones album. I give you that. That's a good one.
That's a good one, but I still think mine wins.
That's a good one. All right, so Tammy goes Waiting to Exhale. I'm going Boomerang. Y'all, let us know what you think in the chat.
Waiting to Exhale. I mean, it's Whitney. Come on. Toni Braxton, Aretha, Patti LaBelle, Shaka Khan. Goodbye. I won. Next.
Next. All right, for that, I'm putting you on the spot. Do you have a favorite poem in Muted that you can share with us?
Oh, yes, I do. So this poem, I wrote it based upon something that, my husband and I have known him. I've known him since I was 10, but I started liking him when I was 16. And we going like 24 years strong. And I remember, like, in our early days, the way that we said, I love you to each other, we didn't say, I love you. We said two things. We said elephant shoes, or we said olive juice. And while this is a book about a girl in a singing group, this is also very much a love story. Like, Denver loves Dalice. And it's something that she struggles with, her identity, but she knows that she loves her as a friend. She loves her as a human being. So this is a poem that is from Denver's perspective in honor of Dalice. But for me, it's also in honor of my husband. If you looked in the mirror and said olive juice, no sound escaping your lips, you'd see it almost looked like I love you. Olive juice. Those words belonged to me and Dali and no one else. a reminder, a code cloaked in two words that to others would mean absolutely nothing at all. So, olive juice.
Wonderful.
Thank
That
you.
was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Tammy. We're getting close to the time where I'm going to kick it over to the audience so they can ask you some questions. But I'm going to go to one more battle question in honor of 90s girl groups. So this battle question, remember, audience, y'all chime in. Tammy, what's the best? And this is because you told me that dance story. What's the best dance
Ah,
track? What's the best dance track by a 90s girl group?
uh, don't walk away, boy. Come on. You know that song.
I do. I do. I was actually going to say
I
that song.
did.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, I was actually, real talk, that was my pick. And because you sang it, and because it's your night,
Now
and
you
because
gotta
you had all the
sing.
best answers, I'm not singing. I am not singing. So far, you have won the battle. We'll see if we get around to any more battle
Thank
questions.
you.
Now we're going to open it up for the audience so they can ask you the things they want to ask. I'm sure we have a few questions. We're going to start with one by our buddy Jason Reynolds. What was the hardest part about writing in verse, Tammy?
Okay. So, first of all, I am so flattered that you are here, Jason, because I've said this in several interviews. Like most authors, when I set out to write a book, I grab up as many mentor texts as I can. And because I knew that I wanted to tell this story within one setting, which was a plane ride, it was absolutely necessary for me to read Long Way Down. Like, who retells a story on an elevator ride? What is it, like 60 seconds down from the top floor to the bottom? Like, that is insane. But it was something that I was trying to tackle myself within this story. So, like, for me, the hardest part was, how do I retell the story within one plane ride? And then I was like, well, dang, if Jason did it in a 60-second elevator ride, I could do it in a 1 hour and 44-minute plane ride. But I had to read a lot of verse novels to like really see the ebb and flow. I had to read a lot of poetry and just try and make it feel like a song the whole way through. And that was hard. That was not easy. But thank you, Jason.
Hey, thanks for the question, Jason. We got a question from Robert, who he asked what was the inspiration behind the two different color eyes. You already explained that. So,
Uh-huh.
Robert, if you got another question, toss it in.
That's my daddy.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Hello, Tammy's dad. We got a question from Victoria. Did anything specific inspire Olive Juice and Muted? You talked about that a bit. And I love Denver and Dolly's dynamic and how they were so interconnected throughout the story. And this was so tender. So, do you have anything else you want to speak on about Olive Juice and that relation?
That was so that part of their relationship, I didn't go into it with the expectation of having Denver and Dali love each other in such a tender way. Like, that wasn't my, like, I wasn't trying to do that. But you know how it is. You start writing and then like things pop up and voices and feelings pop up. And I'm like, oh my God, they love each other. You know, like this is more than a friendship. This is like they are bonded to each other. But there were, you know, culturally that was very hard for both of them to like fully own that. I will say I want to thank fellow author Kaija Langley. She's going to be published in September. She was my go-to. Like, I wanted to make sure that I did right by Denver and Dalise, and she took her time and read through the manuscript and pointed out anything that might have been problematic, or hey, this is not realistic, or this is not, you know, tender enough. And she really, really helped me with that. So I'm glad that people are, you know, liking that bond between Denver and Dali, because that was totally unexpected. And I really took a lot of loving care with the two of them.
Thank you for that, Tammy. Um, Robert, Tammy's dad, came back with another question, and I actually have a follow-up question to this one. His question is, do you have aspirations to have this book become a movie?
My dad just wants to see me on the big screen somewhere, Dad. Of course. Like, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Like, I would love, what author wouldn't want all of their books to be turned into movies? Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice.
Well, my follow-up question then is, any actress of any period who could play Denver?
Now that I love that question. Okay, come on, guys. Look at that cover and tell me, is that not Yara Shahidi? That's Yara.
I can see it. I can see it.
Somebody call Yara, please. And
fantastic
give her this
actor.
book.
So our next question is from Demetrius. First, he says, "I am here for the Purple Rain shirt, Lamar. Thank you.
It is very cool.
we stand for Prince." And the second part of the question is, Tammy, the writing format of the book is so creative. Did you have to defend it, and what made you use it?
So I am very happy that I didn't have to defend it. My agent was all in from jump. Like she was like, yeah, go crazy. The idea is like nothing I've ever heard before. Plane ride, okay. Talking to her father, they're not in the same place. She's located where? Oh, okay, let's do it. So I definitely didn't have to defend it. And because I didn't have to, I was able to do everything that I wanted to. I really tried to put on my current like teen hat. And these kids, they talk on text, they're on IG. Like I was able to incorporate all of that stuff in there. Articles, text messages, social media posts, poetry, songs. Like I bled every part of me onto the page and into this book.
Thank you for that, Tammy, and thank you, Demetrius. We have a question from Sydney. We talked about how your R&B career influenced your writing. How did your teaching influence your writing? And how did you come to poetry? And was songwriting an outlet for you like it's an outlet for Denver? So a couple things there. How
does my teaching influence my writing? I'll say this. I taught for 14 years, and where I taught, at some point in my teaching career, they started giving me the inclusion and ELL classes. So a lot of my students were like, I had the most diverse classes through a large part of my career. And I remember teaching them and us discovering together diverse books together. And the 12-year-old in me would read these books and think, wow, I wish I had these kind of books growing up, because we didn't have these kind of stories. But to see how they felt seeing themselves on a page, I knew I wanted to be a part of that. So my teaching influences my writing because I know who I'm writing for. I'm writing for them. I literally witnessed with my own eyes the magic of a child who sees themselves in a book. So every story I go into, that's at the forefront of my mind. Her other question, how did I come into poetry and songwriting? Well, poetry was always a part of me because my mom is a retired principal. She was the teacher, vice principal, and principal at the elementary school that I attended. Like I had no other choice but to like books. And it wasn't just one type of book. My mom put all kinds of books in my hand. Poetry, Maya Angelou. I knew her work, from a long time ago. So that was just kind of a natural thing for me to love poetry. I grew up in the church. I grew up in the choir. I was in a singing group. So like songwriting was natural to me because I love poetry. All of those pieces fit together. And is songwriting an outlet for me like it is for Denver? It used to be. I haven't written a song in like 20 years. I didn't write a song until I wrote this book. I have not written a song since I was a teenager. So that was new and different and very scary.
Well, I heard you perform some of those songs last night and they sounded like you're not rusty at all.
Oh, thanks.
We have a question from Kalisha. Forgive me, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. How difficult was this book to write? Did any particular scene affect you most?
This book was a roller coaster to write. There were moments of joy, though. I want to put that out there because I don't want people to think, "Oh my God, this is like the whole way through. It's heavy." No, there. My favorite moments were those very tender moments of Denver with Dalise and Shaq, and just just chilling and vibing with her friends. And there's quite a bit of that. But the hard stuff was those scenes where Merc would like do something or say something and it went over Denver's head. But as a mom and as an adult and as a reader, I'm looking at it like, girl, wake up. You don't see that. You don't see what he just did or didn't do. So like the parent in me, it was hard to write those scenes. As far as a scene that affected me the most, yes. There's a scene at the end of the book where Denver goes to the post office and she puts a very important package in the mail. And if you read the book, you'll know exactly why that particular scene is impactful. And that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, we won't spoil anything.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. We have one from Peggy. What other verse novels did you read?
For this book, I read Long Way Down. I've always read everything that Kwame Alexander writes. I've read Sold, Shout. I mean, Shout is so really, really well done. Lots of Ellen Hopkins books. The Things We Don't Say. I read a lot of poetry books by Rupi. I read Rupi Kaur, Jasmine Kaur. I don't know if I'm saying the last name. Actually, I think it's Kaur. Rupi Kaur and Jasmine Kaur. They are they're poets and they write these really short snippet poems. And I read a lot of Amanda Lovelace too.
Nice little reading list for everyone if you want to pick
Yeah.
up some other verse novels. Thank you for that. We have a question from Takaya. How important was it to you to not only have Black characters at the center of the story, but Afro Latinx characters specifically?
Oh, well, it was very important because, like I said, the teacher in me, I write for my students. Like I taught a very diverse group of students in Linden. But as far as my family is concerned, my husband is Haitian, which we are raising my son in a way that I want my son to be proud of his heritage, because not to get political, but there have been times you turn on the news and you hear, Haiti's a crap hole country. No, that's not what I want my son growing up feeling about, himself or his people. So I really try to show like the full range of who we are, as Black people on a global scale. And that means that, yeah, we're here in the United States, but you know what? We're in Haiti, we're in DR, we're in Colombia. Like I try to show that in my writing because I want us as Black people to know like the global influence that we have, not just here in this country. So that's important because I want to reflect my students. I want to reflect my family. And I just want readers to know how dope we are and that we matter, from here and all across the world. So that's important to me to do that. And Dalise is a secondary character, but like she's Dominican, but she's Black. She is Afro-Dominican. She's from Dominican Republic. And you know what? We're over there too. So I wanted to show, a talented Dominican girl who is working hard toward her dreams as well.
So we're getting very close to our time. I don't know if we'll be able to squeeze both of these questions in. So I'll ask them both. They're from Jill and Stacy, respectively. Mm-hmm. Of all your honors and awards and accolades, which one are you most proud of? And Stacy's question is, what do you hope young women take away from Muted?
Oh, okay. So the accolades one that's easy. I don't have it. I should have had this out, but I wrote a book, All Because You Matter. I wrote it in tribute to my son. because I want him to know that there's a place for him in this world. And essentially, that message is one that that is for all children of color. It's for children from marginalized backgrounds, and really, it's for all children, because all children need to know that we as people of color matter. Their friends matter. It's a vehicle to build empathy and kindness. So, like that book, just having it published and seeing the accolades. I mean, it hit the New York Times bestseller list. Who knew? And it's about my son. Like, my son's gonna have that for the rest of his life. So that has been like the most rewarding part for me. And as far as what do I hope women take away from Muted, I just hope that they walk away knowing like no one has the power to mute you. No one has the power to diminish your worth. Your voice is your power, and there's a whole village of people waiting to support you in your journey for whatever that may be in your life.
Well, thank you for that. I don't know if Michael's listening. Do I have time for one more question? Okay, cool. My last question for you, Tami, is what's next for you? What else can we look forward to from Tami Charles?
Okay, what's next? I would like to get vaccinated so I can leave my house.
Same.
That would be great. But as far as writing, this was a roller coaster. So I think I'm gonna dive back into picture books for a little bit before I step back into the novel world.